the fall of Beacon Academy and who also fell with it. Now, we know that Beacon Academy was an incredible tragedy, probably the biggest one we have seen in the RWBY series so far. Is, you know, Haven Academy wasn't really destroyed, Beacon Academy was, and although we only saw the casualties that were relevant to the plot at the time, you know, Penny, Pyrrha, Roman Torchwick, Ozpin even got off-screened, but those four were the only ones that we saw. However, a lot more people died in that attack. There were Grimm overrunning the entire city, not to mention the giant dragon Grimm dropping other Grimm everywhere throughout the city as well. And then there's the Atlas soldiers that turned on everyone. So yeah, there were a lot of people that died. I'm sure there were many civilian casualties and many people injured in this entire fight. But today I want to focus on the teams that were competing in the Vital Festival. They were all in the stadium, or at least near the stadium, a lot of them were, when this all started going down, because everyone was there to witness the finals. So let's start off by the finalists. Well, out of the finalists, we know 5 of them. We have Sun, who we didn't even get to see fight. Then we had Pyrrha versus Penny, who unfortunately both of them were 2 of the casualties that we saw in Volume 3. Pyrrha unfortunately killed Penny by having Emerald using the illusion, and you know, you saw it all, and then of course everything that happened with Pyrrha. Then there was Yang and Mercury. Yang lost an arm in the entire fight in the fall of Beacon, but that was due to Adam. We don't know if Adam actually killed any other students or any civilians or anything on top of that. I wouldn't put it past him. Anyone who crossed paths with him probably died, but we have got no confirmation on if he actually did. And then of course Mercury was part of the entire plot to begin with. But then there were 3 other finalists that we saw, and honestly, when I looked up and got a look at their designs close up, like, damn, they have some interesting designs. Now, one of them, kind of futuristic looking, we have got confirmation that he is from Atlas. The other 2, the one with is it a fedora hat with the feather in it? He's kind of based on the 3 Musketeers. And the hooded one is kind of based off of Aladdin. Now, in the finalists, I'm going to guess that these 2 that we have no idea where they're from, I'm going to guess that they are from Shade Academy, from Vacuo, because we have Penny and the other unidentified finalist we know is from Atlas, so that's 2 from Atlas. Then we have Mercury, who is masquerading as someone from Haven, and Sun, who was also from Haven. And then we had Pyrrha and Yang, both from Vale. I'm guessing they probably divided it up quite evenly so that, you know, 2 from each of the academies. That would make sense, although it doesn't have to be that way because it was, of course, a tournament. However, when we look at there being 8 finalists, that means there was a total of 32 teams that were competing in this overall tournament. Meaning, with each team having 4 members, there were 128 huntsmen in training in this facility that all probably took part in this battle. Yes, I'm sure some of them fled, but a lot of them would have stayed to fight. We saw a lot of the ones that were shown on screen, because most of them we actually didn't see. Overall, I think we only saw like 10, 11 teams, and that's about it. One of those teams being Cinder's team, who orchestrated this entire thing. You know, Cinder, Emerald, Mercury, and Neo. They didn't participate fighting any of the Grimm because they wanted to watch the carnage happen and caused it all. Not to mention filming it and streaming it live to the world. Great, great thing there. So out of the 32 teams, we at least know that Cinder's team survived. So 31 teams remaining. And out of those, we have 4 teams identified from Beacon and 2 from each of the other academies. So from Beacon, we have Team RWBY, Team Juniper, Team Coffee, and Team Cardinal that we know were in the tournament. And I think those are really all the teams that we have identified from Beacon Academy in the series overall. So, out of those teams, of course, Team RWBY survived. We know Team Coffee survived thanks to After the Fall. They moved on to Shade Academy. They did, you know, stay for a couple weeks after Beacon actually fell and the civilians were all evacuated to try to help defend it, but Good Witch encouraged them to move on to Shade and finish their Huntsman training. And of course, you know, Team Juniper, we know what happened there. But then there's Team Cardinal. We haven't seen anything about Team Cardinal since then. They got knocked out fairly early on in the tournament, so whether they stayed around to watch the rest of the tournament or just were fed up with it, because, you know, the amount of personality that we've gotten from them is pretty much that Cardin is a bully, and all of them are kinda cowardly when push comes to shove. When the giant Ursa turned on Cardin, the rest of his team just abandoned him. Of course, I'm guessing progressing through the year, they probably got closer as a team and maybe formed up a little bit, but we don't actually know. The other scene that we've seen with them in an actual combat setting is when they were fighting Pyrrha. Now, Pyrrha alone was able to take out their entire team, but, you know, Pyrrha is a star athlete. Cardin and the rest of his team all made it into Beacon Academy. They are worthy of being huntsmen in their own right. They made it in the legitimate way, unlike Jean. But we haven't actually seen them in a highly combat setting and seen what they are actually capable of. My guess would be that when the shit hit the fan, when the Grimm started invading and the military started turning, they took off and ran. I wouldn't put it past the series, though, if at least one of them didn't make it out. Maybe if we see Cardin and the rest of his team again, which we actually may not, we don't know what happened to them after that, if they even continued their huntsman training, I would actually see that if they became kind of bounty hunters or just warriors for hire, didn't even bother going to any of the other schools, something like that. Or they could have turned tail and ran and just hide at home and just avoid the rest of the world after that. Not exactly sure, but I think that if we see them again, at least one of their team is going to be dead. And someone, I think Cardin might have a scar from running away. That would serve as a reminder of the cowardice that he once had, and also serve as a reminder that he ran away and left his teammate to die. Maybe that would give Cardin a reason to turn around, turn a new leaf, and maybe be a character that could become more of a main character later on in the series. I wouldn't mind that if he turns himself around. They put him in only in Volume 1 as pretty much a bully, and then he served no purpose after that, but I would like to see him come back redeemed. If he's still a bully, get rid of him. Don't need him, although I would like to see it if he came back and then Jean just whooped his ass. That would be nice. Now for the rest of the schools, Haven Academy. There's Cinder's team, of course, who is posing as someone from Haven, but there's also Team Sun, who we know is completely fine. They showed up, spoiler warning, they showed up at the end of After the Fall. They showed up in Vacuo going to Shade Academy, and they joined up with Team Coffee. So they're going to connect, share all their stories of, you know, what happened with Team RWBY, with Team Coffee. Team Coffee's going to share all the stories of what happened in Vacuo with Team Sun, and that's going to continue on in probably the sequel novel. So Team Sun is okay. The only other team that we know from Haven Academy is Team Auburn. Now, this team fought against, it was against Team RWBY in round 1, and Team RWBY did defeat them. That team consists of Arslan, Bolin, Reese, and Nadir. Now, in the fight, all we saw in the fight was what we saw in the Vital Fighting Festival. We did see a little bit afterwards. Arslan seemed to be the strongest of all of them. Nadir, we didn't really see much of. I'm guessing the scene that was showed of him, you know, being pretty much useless, just getting frozen in ice, was just for comedic effect, I would hope, because he seemed fairly inadequate compared to the rest of his team. Reese put up a pretty good fight against, she was fighting Blake, I think, and then there was Bolin, who was putting up a pretty good fight as well. Now, if what we saw in the Vital Fighting Festival was their actual, you know, fighting capabilities, that Nadir couldn't really do much, that's, that doesn't bode well for that guy, unfortunately. Arslan, I fully see surviving. Her instincts and the way that she handled herself in that battle, she's going to survive. And I'm pretty sure she would protect the rest of her team, but if Nadir was taken out that easily and, you know, surprised by that, he might be dead. Not 100% sure on that. Well, not 100% sure on any of this, hence why it's a theory, but still. And also an interesting note, we did not see them at all at Haven Academy. We didn't see any of the teams that were from Haven Academy. We saw no students at Haven Academy, other than Sun, who had went back to the Faunus land to go with Blake, get the Faunus, and come back and save Haven Academy. But other than that, we saw no Haven students. It would have been nice to see Team Auburn again. Maybe they went to Vacuo as well. Maybe they were out on other missions or something, but I still find it weird we didn't see any students from Haven Academy. Next, we have Atlas. These are the ones that we might see next volume. Of course, there was Penny's team, who we only have 2 identified members of Penny, which she might have been recreated in Atlas, we don't know. But the Penny that we knew has, of course, been deceased for the past 3 volumes. But the other member of her team, CL, who was pretty much there as Penny's supervisor, we haven't seen her at all. And we might see her next volume. In fact, I anticipate it if we ever meet Penny's father. CL probably works for him, and with that being the case, maybe she's supervising the new Penny that has been created, or something along those lines. I fully expect to see CL again if she survived. We didn't see her at all after the battle with Penny. I'm sure she was there in the stands. Maybe we did see her in the stands. I'm not 100% sure in my memory, but CL, we don't know her combat capabilities. She wasn't on that team to be a combatant, so I don't know if she had any fighting capabilities. She could have, if she was taken by surprise and actually isn't really much of a fighter, she could have fallen in that fight as well. And then, of course, there's Team Funky, who, again, we only have 2 identified members of, Flint and Neon, both very capable fighters. They were able to handle Weiss and Yang very well. Weiss even had to, pretty much kamikaze herself to stand a chance, and she even didn't defeat Flint by doing that. Yang had to one-punch both of them out of existence, and then that's how they ended up winning. I do expect that both of them survived. I would like to meet the rest of their team and see what kind of school Atlas Academy is. Because as Weiss pointed out, I expect them to be, highly disciplined and military-esque. And then we got Neon and Flint. Neon especially being quite erratic in her behavior and not something you'd expect from a military school. But yeah, hopefully we'll see them again. I do expect that they survived. Again, not sure about CL. Next we get to the teams from Shade Academy, both of which we know in their entirety, all 4 members. The first of which, all-female team, fought Team Sun in round 1 and did end up losing. Team Indigo, consisting of Nebula, Dew, Gwen, and Octavia. Now all these women were highly capable. Team Sun almost lost to them. They, in my opinion, should have won that fight. They shouldn't have all just been standing in the water, especially as Neptune took out his scepter, or his halberd, sorry, and tiptoed towards the water to stick it in. They had time to jump out. They shouldn't have lost that fight, but anyways, they are all highly capable fighters, and I have no doubt that they all survived. Hopefully, in either the sequel to After the Fall, we'll see them, or later in the series, we will see them again. It would be lovely to see that interaction now that Team Sun is heading to Shade Academy, and see Team Indigo actually wipe the floor with Sun this time. Or Team Sun this time. That would be quite nice. The last known team out of all of the ones competing at the Vital Fighting Festival is Team Bronze, also from Shade Academy, consisting of Bronze, Roy, Nolan, and May. We saw them fight Team Juniper in round 1, and they did end up losing thanks to Nora's friggin' banhammer on them, just knocking them all out of the park. Now, this team is dead. Or at least thought to be dead. We know at least Roy, the one wielding the dual saw blades, is dead. We know, confirmed, from After the Fall, that he died in the fall of Beacon. He was carried away by an Evermore and wasn't seen again. He is confirmed dead, and it is thought that the rest of Team Bronze died in the fall of Beacon. Which, this team was pretty highly skilled. They had a sniper, and they had highly skilled fighters there. Now, of course, May being the sniper, if she was caught off guard, unfortunately there's not much she can do about that at close range. Of course, her weapon also was, I believe, almost like an axe at close range, which is useful, but if you're being overrun, not so much. So Team Bronze is thought to be dead. The one other team that we found out didn't make it through the fall of Beacon. So overall, out of the teams that we've seen, a lot of them did survive. But as I said, there's 32 teams, we only knew 11 of them. Now, I'm assuming, to give each school a fair chance, there were 8 teams from each school. 8 from Beacon, and then 8 from Shade, Haven, and Atlas Academy as well. So since we know 4 teams that were competing from Beacon, 3 technically from Haven, one of which being Cinders, and then 2 from each of the others, there's a lot of gray area when it comes to the students. My guess is a lot of those other teams that were unnamed did die. I would guess out of the, what is it? It would be 21 teams that we don't know, don't have any clue. I would guess that probably 10 teams had casualties, at least lost a single member or had members injured throughout that severely because of the Grim, and most importantly, the Atlas soldiers, the Atlas military turning on the huntsmen and the people of Vale and the people trying to flee. This is akin to Order 66 that was in the Jedi movies, where the Jedi were fighting alongside the Stormtroopers, and the Jedi, who are highly skilled warriors, much more so than Stormtroopers, were completely taken off guard when the Stormtroopers that they thought were their allies completely turned on them and wiped them out. They were completely overwhelmed, surprised, and died. That happened exactly at Beacon Academy. All of the soldiers that people were fighting alongside turned on them. That would cause a lot of casualties, especially in people who weren't full-fledged huntsmen. Now, I'm going to guess that the teams that the 3 identified finalists were on probably survived. They look, just based on their designs, they look a bit more mature than, you know, Team RWBY, or a little bit older, I should say, than Team RWBY, Team Juniper, etc. As we know, in the Vital Festival, anyone could compete, regardless of what year they were in. Year 1, 2, 3, whatever. I think the academies only went to 3rd year. I think there was only 3 years at the Huntsman Academy. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that the 3 of them would have survived because they look like they're at least 2nd or 3rd year students. We know that Team Coffee is a 2nd year team, and these characters look a little bit more mature than them, a little bit more grown up than, you know, Yatsuhashi, a little bit more chiseled, and like with their definitions. That's just my guess. Could easily be wrong, but I'm guessing that the 3 who made it to the finals, with their teams being skilled enough to make it there, they would have survived and been a little bit more battle hardened. Let me know what you guys think, though, as to how many teams you actually think survived Beacon Academy out of the teams that we do have identified. Do you think any of the members did end up dying? Like, for me, I at least think 1 member of Team Cardinal and 1 member of Team Auburn probably did die, just based on what we've seen in the series. Do you think that Team Cardinal is going to show up again in the series? Do you think that any of these other teams that we haven't seen since then are going to show up? Of course, maybe Team Funky and Atlas, but yeah, let me know what you guys think down below about the explosion, everything that happened, but more importantly, about Beacon Academy and the teams that you think might have fallen in there. What do you think about my opinion that, you know, some teams may have lost a member or 2, like Team Cardinal and Team Auburn, potentially. And then, you know, if you didn't know that Team Bronze died, how do you feel about that? And how many of the teams do you think suffered casualties in the loss of life category, that they lost a member or more? Or potentially there might only be single survivors of teams, and do you think we will encounter those later on in the series? It would be really interesting to see or meet other characters who were at the fall of Beacon that we didn't see, and hear their stories and their side of the fall of Beacon. I would really like to see that in the series, or hear about it in accessory materials, whether it's books or other forms. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I really look forward to reading your comments. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching again, and I hope I'll see you guys in the next one.